Have you ever wondered if the foods you've been told are healthy your entire life might actually be causing harm now that you're over 65? It's a strange thought, isn't it? The idea that those vegetables you've dutifully added to your plate for decades, the ones doctors and nutritionists have praised, could actually be damaging your brain health in your golden years. I've spent years researching how nutrition changes as we age, and what I've discovered might surprise you. There are actually 3 common vegetables that many seniors eat every day that could be silently affecting your memory, cognition, and even your mood, without you even realizing it. Before we dive into these surprising culprits, I'd love to know where you're joining me from today. Drop a comment below sharing your age and location, and let me know if you've noticed any changes in your memory or thinking lately. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest health insights that could truly change your quality of life. Now let's talk about why certain vegetables that were perfect for you at 40 might be problematic after 65. It's not that these foods suddenly become bad. Nothing in nutrition is that simple. Instead, it's about how our bodies change as we age, particularly how we process certain compounds found in everyday foods. As we get older, our digestive systems become less efficient. The protective lining in our gut thins out. Our liver and kidneys don't filter toxins as effectively. And perhaps most importantly for today's discussion, the blood-brain barrier, that crucial protective shield that determines what gets access to your brain, becomes more permeable with age. Think of it like the security system in your home. When you're younger, it's state-of-the-art, keeping unwanted visitors out while letting welcome guests in. But as you age, it's like that security system starts developing gaps, small ones at first, but they grow over time. Suddenly, compounds that your body once handled easily are slipping through to places they don't belong. That's exactly what happens with certain vegetables after 65. They contain compounds that your body managed perfectly in your younger years. But now, those same compounds can cross into your brain tissue, creating inflammation and disrupting the delicate balance of neurotransmitters that control everything from your memory to your mood. Let me tell you about Martha, a vibrant 72-year-old who came to me completely frustrated. She'd always prided herself on her sharp mind and independence. She did the daily crossword, stayed socially active, and ate what she thought was a perfect diet rich in vegetables. But over the past year, she'd started noticing alarming changes. "Some days, it's like a fog comes over my brain," she told me. "I'll be in the middle of a sentence and completely lose my train of thought. Or I'll walk into a room and have no idea why I went there. I'm starting to worry that it's the beginning of something serious." Martha had seen her doctor, who told her everything was normal, just typical aging. But Martha knew something was wrong. She felt it, and she was right. When we reviewed her diet, I noticed she consumed large amounts of the 3 vegetables I'm about to share with you. Within just 3 weeks of removing them, her mental clarity returned. The brain fog lifted. Her words came easily again. She felt like herself. "I can't believe something so simple made such a difference," she told me, tears in her eyes. "I thought I was losing myself." Martha's story isn't unique. I've seen this pattern repeat hundreds of times with my clients. The good news: once you know which vegetables are causing problems, the solution is remarkably simple. So let's talk about the first vegetable that might be damaging your brain after 65. Bell peppers, particularly the green ones. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bell peppers? Those colorful, vitamin-rich vegetables that everyone says are so good for you? The ones that add crunch to your salads and flavor to your stir-fries? Yes, those very same bell peppers. Here's the problem. Bell peppers belong to the nightshade family of vegetables, and they contain compounds called glycoalkaloids. These natural pesticides help protect the plant in nature, but in humans, particularly aging humans, they can be problematic. After 65, your body produces fewer digestive enzymes, which means these glycoalkaloids aren't broken down as efficiently. When they enter your bloodstream intact, they can trigger an inflammatory response. And with that more permeable blood-brain barrier I mentioned earlier, this inflammation can affect your brain. Dr. Helen Matthews, a neurologist specializing in aging, explains it this way. Inflammation is the root of cognitive decline. When inflammatory compounds cross the blood-brain barrier, they can disrupt neural connections and even damage brain cells. Over time, this leads to symptoms that many dismiss as just getting older, forgetting names, misplacing items, or struggling to concentrate. But those aren't just signs of aging. They're signs that something in your environment, including your diet, could be causing harm. In a study published in the Journal of Neuroinflammation, researchers found that certain glycoalkaloids found in nightshades could trigger inflammatory pathways in brain tissue. The effect was particularly pronounced in older subjects, where the blood-brain barrier was already compromised. Now, not everyone is equally sensitive to nightshades. Some people can eat bell peppers their entire lives without issue, but after 65, your risk increases significantly. And if you're already experiencing any kind of cognitive changes or have a family history of dementia, these vegetables might be adding fuel to the fire. What about other colors of bell peppers? While red, yellow, and orange peppers contain lower levels of these problematic compounds than green ones, they still contain enough to cause issues for sensitive individuals, especially if eaten daily. Let me tell you about Richard, a 68-year-old retired teacher who contacted me about his increasing anxiety and insomnia. He'd always been calm and slept soundly, but suddenly he was lying awake at night, his mind racing, feeling inexplicably on edge during the day. Richard had recently started growing bell peppers in his garden and was proudly eating them every single day, often multiple times a day. He'd add them raw to his morning omelette, include them in his lunch salad, and cook them with dinner. Just 2 weeks after eliminating bell peppers, his anxiety diminished and his sleep improved dramatically. I never would have connected my mental state to a vegetable, he told me, but the difference is undeniable. What can you eat instead? If you love the crunch and color of bell peppers, try substituting jicama, cucumber, or celery. These vegetables provide similar texture without the problematic compounds, and if you miss the taste, herbs like basil and spices like paprika, which is made from dried bell peppers but has lower levels of the problematic compounds, can help fill the flavor gap. Let's move on to the second brain-damaging vegetable that many seniors consume daily, raw spinach. Now, before you close this video in disbelief, hear me out. Spinach has been celebrated as a superfood for generations, and for good reason. It's packed with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. I'm not suggesting that spinach itself is inherently harmful. The problem lies specifically with raw spinach consumed in large amounts after age 65. Here's why. Raw spinach is one of the highest plant sources of oxalates, compounds that naturally occur in many foods but can become problematic in certain conditions. When you're younger, your body generally handles oxalates efficiently. But as you age, several factors change. First, your kidney function typically decreases with age, meaning you don't filter oxalates as effectively. Second, many seniors take medications or supplements that can affect oxalate processing. And third, chronic low-level dehydration, extremely common in older adults, concentrates oxalates in your system. But what do oxalates have to do with brain health? Research published in the Journal of Neuropathology and Experimental Neurology found that oxalate crystals can accumulate not just in the kidneys, where they're known to cause stones, but also in brain tissue. These crystalline deposits have been associated with neuronal damage and inflammation. Dr. Sarah Chen, a researcher specializing in nutritional neuroscience, explains, oxalates are like tiny shards of glass at a cellular level. They can create oxidative stress and damage cell membranes. In the brain, this manifests as cognitive dysfunction, memory problems, and even mood disorders. This is particularly concerning for seniors who diligently drink green smoothies or eat large spinach salads daily, thinking they're making the healthiest possible choice. Consider Eleanor, an active 75-year-old who prided herself on her healthy lifestyle. Every morning, without fail, she would make a green smoothie with 2 cups of raw spinach, believing she was nourishing her body and brain. But over time, Eleanor started experiencing unexplained headaches, mental fatigue, and difficulty retrieving words, all of which she attributed to just getting older. When she came to me, one of the first changes we made was swapping her raw spinach for lightly steamed spinach, which reduces oxalate content by 30–40%, and eventually replacing some of her spinach with lower oxalate greens. Within a month, her headaches diminished, and her mental energy returned. 6 weeks in, she called me excitedly to report that she'd remembered the name of a childhood friend she'd been trying to recall for months. "It just popped into my head clear as day," she said. "I feel like my brain is waking up again." Is all spinach problematic? Not necessarily. Cooking spinach significantly reduces its oxalate content, so while raw spinach in your daily salad or smoothie might be concerning, small amounts of well-cooked spinach in your soup or casserole are generally much less problematic. What can you eat instead? If you love your greens, as you should, consider replacing some of your spinach with lower oxalate alternatives like butter lettuce, arugula, or watercress. These provide similar nutrients without the high oxalate load. And if you do eat spinach, cooking it thoroughly and pairing it with calcium-rich foods can help mitigate the effects of remaining oxalates. Now, let's talk about the third vegetable that might be silently damaging your brain after 65, raw kale. Like spinach, kale has been hailed as a nutritional powerhouse. But for seniors, regularly consuming large amounts of raw kale can present unique challenges to brain health. The issue with kale is twofold. First, like spinach, it contains significant amounts of oxalates, which we've already discussed. But kale presents an additional concern. It's one of the most goitrogenic vegetables, meaning it contains compounds that can interfere with thyroid function. Why does this matter for your brain? Because thyroid hormones are absolutely crucial for brain health, especially as you age. Your brain is one of the most metabolically active organs in your body, and it relies heavily on proper thyroid function to maintain energy, clarity, and cognitive processing. When your thyroid is even slightly underactive, a condition that becomes increasingly common after 65, it can lead to symptoms that mimic dementia, brain fog, memory problems, difficulty concentrating, and depression. Dr. Robert Walker, an endocrinologist specializing in geriatric medicine, puts it bluntly. "I've seen patients diagnosed with early dementia whose symptoms dramatically improved once we addressed their subclinical hypothyroidism. The overlap between thyroid dysfunction and cognitive decline is substantial and often overlooked. The goitrogenic compounds in raw kale can exacerbate this problem by blocking iodine uptake and interfering with thyroid hormone production. For a senior who consumes raw kale daily in smoothies or salads, this can gradually tip an already vulnerable thyroid system into dysfunction. Let me share Thomas's story. At 70, Thomas was dedicated to his health. After reading about the benefits of raw green juices, he started having a large kale juice every morning. 6 months into this routine, his wife noticed concerning changes. He seemed constantly fatigued, his once quick wit had slowed, and he'd developed a peculiar sensitivity to cold. Most alarmingly, he'd started having trouble following conversations and would sometimes repeat the same questions multiple times, something completely out of character for this retired professor. When Thomas consulted with his doctor, his thyroid tests came back, showing subclinical hypothyroidism. After eliminating raw kale and other raw cruciferous vegetables and starting on appropriate treatment, his cognitive symptoms improved dramatically within weeks. His wife put it perfectly. It was like watching someone come out of a fog. Every day, a little more of the man I know returned. It's important to note that cooking kale significantly reduces its goitrogenic properties. So while that daily raw kale salad might be problematic, kale sautéed with olive oil and garlic is much less likely to affect your thyroid and, by extension, your brain. What can you eat instead? If you enjoy raw greens, consider swapping some of your kale for non-cruciferous leafy greens like butter lettuce, romaine, or chard. And if you love kale's flavor and nutritional benefits, simply cooking it thoroughly can make it a much safer choice for regular consumption. Now let me address some common questions that might be running through your mind right now. First, does this mean I can never eat these vegetables again? Absolutely not. This isn't about complete elimination for most people. It's about being aware of how these foods might affect you differently now than they did in your younger years, and making informed adjustments. For many seniors, the key is moderation and preparation. Instead of a daily raw spinach salad, perhaps enjoy it once a week. Rather than raw bell peppers every day, cook them thoroughly most of the time. And instead of juicing raw kale, sauté it with healthy fats that help mitigate some of its problematic compounds. Second question, is this true for everyone over 65? No, individual responses vary significantly. Some people remain able to consume these vegetables without any noticeable effects on their cognitive function. Others experience dramatic improvements when they reduce or properly prepare these foods. The key is self-awareness. If you're experiencing any cognitive changes, memory issues, brain fog, difficulty finding words, mood alterations, consider how these vegetables might be contributing, especially if you consume them regularly. Third question, how quickly will I notice improvements if these vegetables are affecting me? Based on my work with hundreds of seniors, most people who are sensitive to these compounds begin noticing improvements within 2 to 3 weeks of making dietary changes. However, the full benefits often continue to unfold over 2 to 3 months as inflammation resolves and brain function improves. Remember Martha from earlier in our discussion? She noticed her brain fog lifting after just 3 weeks. But by the 3-month mark, she reported that her thinking was clearer than it had been in years. I feel like I've gotten part of myself back that I thought was gone forever, she told me. Now, I want to emphasize something important. Nutrition is highly personalized, especially as we age. What affects one person significantly might have minimal impact on another. That's why it's crucial to pay attention to your own body's signals and work with healthcare providers who take your concerns seriously. But I also want to offer hope. So many cognitive symptoms that get dismissed as normal aging are actually related to inflammation, metabolic issues, or nutrient imbalances that can be addressed. Your brain has remarkable resilience and capacity for healing when given the right support. Let me tell you about Daniel, an 83-year-old who had been experiencing progressive memory decline for several years. His family was increasingly concerned, and his doctor had suggested that he might be in the early stages of dementia. Daniel had always been proud of his healthy diet, which included a large raw spinach and kale salad every day for lunch, and bell peppers with hummus as his afternoon snack. He'd been eating this way for decades, believing he was giving his body the best possible nutrition. When his daughter learned about the potential effects of these vegetables on aging brains, she was skeptical but desperate. They decided to try changing his diet for 1 month. They replaced his raw salads with cooked vegetables, focusing on those less likely to cause inflammation or thyroid disruption. They swapped his bell peppers for carrot sticks and jicama. The results were nothing short of remarkable. Within 6 weeks, Daniel was remembering recent conversations, finding words more easily, and even recalling details of events from weeks earlier that he would previously have forgotten immediately. His energy improved, and the cloud of confusion that had been gradually enveloping him began to lift. His doctor was astonished at the change and encouraged them to continue the dietary modifications. While Daniel still had some memory challenges, he was, after all, in his 80s, the trajectory of his cognitive health had visibly shifted. This doesn't mean that every case of cognitive decline can be reversed through dietary changes alone. Many factors contribute to brain health, including genetics, lifestyle, environmental exposures, and underlying health conditions. But nutrition is a powerful lever that we can control, and it's often overlooked in discussions about cognitive health and aging. So what should you eat to support your brain after 65? While we've focused on what to reduce or avoid, let's talk about what to embrace. First, emphasize cooked vegetables, particularly those with proven brain benefits. These include beets, which improve blood flow to the brain, sweet potatoes, which provide stable energy for brain cells, broccoli, cooked, not raw, which contains compounds that support detoxification, carrots, which are rich in antioxidants that protect brain tissue, onions and garlic, which have anti-inflammatory properties. Second, include healthy fats with every meal. Your brain is 60% fat, and it needs regular replenishment. Olive oil, avocados, nuts and fatty fish provide the building blocks your brain needs to maintain and repair itself. Third, embrace herbs and spices. Turmeric, rosemary, thyme and cinnamon have all been studied for their brain protective effects. They add flavor while fighting inflammation, a perfect combination. Fourth, consider fermented foods like yogurt, kefir and sauerkraut. The connection between gut health and brain function becomes increasingly important as we age, and fermented foods support a healthy microbiome. Finally, stay hydrated. Dehydration can mimic or exacerbate cognitive symptoms, and many seniors don't drink enough water. Your brain is approximately 75% water, and even mild dehydration can affect its function. Now, I want to address a concern that might be arising for some of you. If these healthy vegetables can cause problems, what can I trust? Is everything potentially harmful? This is a valid question, and I want to reassure you. The vast majority of vegetables are beneficial for aging brains when properly prepared and consumed in appropriate amounts. The issues we've discussed with bell peppers, raw spinach and raw kale are relatively specific to these foods and relate to their particular compounds. The solution isn't to fear vegetables or drastically restrict your diet. Rather, it's to be informed about how your nutritional needs change with age and to make targeted adjustments that support your brain's current needs. Think of it like updating your financial portfolio as you move through different life stages. The investments that served you well in your 40s might need adjustments as you enter retirement. Similarly, the nutritional strategies that served you at 50 might need refinement at 70 or 80. I encourage you to approach this information with curiosity rather than fear. Pay attention to how you feel after meals. Notice if certain foods seem to trigger brain fog, fatigue, or mood changes. Keep a simple food journal if it helps you identify patterns. And remember that cooking methods matter tremendously. Many of the problematic compounds in the vegetables we've discussed are significantly reduced by proper cooking. Steaming, sautéing, roasting, or boiling can transform a potentially inflammatory food into a brain-supportive one. Let me share one last story that illustrates the power of these seemingly small changes. Janet was 77 when her daughter brought her to see me. Once a vibrant social woman who loved playing bridge and volunteering at her local library, Janet had become withdrawn and confused. She would get lost, driving to familiar places, and had stopped participating in activities she once loved because she couldn't keep up with conversations or remember the rules of games. Janet's diet included many healthy elements, but also large amounts of the 3 vegetables we've discussed. She had a green smoothie with raw kale and spinach every morning, snacked on bell peppers throughout the day, and often had salads loaded with these same vegetables. We made gradual changes to her diet, cooking her greens instead of consuming them raw, replacing bell peppers with other crunchy vegetables, and ensuring she got enough protein and healthy fats to support brain function. We also address some nutrient deficiencies common in seniors that can affect cognition, particularly B12, vitamin D, and magnesium. 3 months later, Janet's daughter called me in tears. "Mom played bridge yesterday," she said. "She remembered the rules, followed the conversation, and even won a hand. I hadn't realized how much of her we'd lost until I started seeing her come back." This is why I'm sharing this information with you today, not to cause fear, but to offer hope. The brain changes we often attribute to inevitable aging aren't always inevitable at all. Sometimes they're the result of inflammation, nutrient imbalances, or dietary factors that can be addressed. If you've been experiencing changes in your thinking, memory, or mood, I encourage you to consider how your diet might be contributing. The vegetables we've discussed today, bell peppers, raw spinach, and raw kale, are worth examining, especially if you consume them regularly. And if you have loved ones showing signs of cognitive decline, consider gently exploring dietary changes alongside any medical treatments they're receiving. While nutrition isn't the only factor in brain health, it's one we have significant control over, and its effects can be profound. I hope this information serves as a tool of empowerment rather than a source of worry. Your brain has remarkable adaptability, even in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. By giving it the right nutritional environment, you support its natural capacity for clarity, memory, and vibrant function. If you found this information helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more evidence-based insights on optimizing health as you age. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you noticed cognitive changes that might be related to your diet? Are there specific foods that seem to affect how clearly you think? Thank you for joining me today. And remember, your brain's story isn't written in stone. With the right knowledge and choices, you can support its health and function for years to come. Until next time, be well, eat wisely, and embrace the remarkable journey of aging with knowledge as your guide.